You're being controlled by something that already happened to you. And the most disturbing part is you call it who you are. You don't even realize your past is still making your decisions. Even right now, most of your adult decisions aren't really yours. They were programmed long before you had a say in anything. And the most unsettling part is, it feels like you. You call it your personality, your preferences, your way of being. But a lot of it is just your childhood, repeating itself quietly inside you. You think you're choosing who you love, how you react, how much you tolerate. But what if you're not choosing at all? What if you're just remembering? Not with your mind, with your nervous system. Because childhood trauma doesn't always look like something obvious. It's not always something you can clearly point at. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's inconsistency. Sometimes it's growing up where love felt unpredictable or quietly conditional. So you adapted. You had to. You learned how to read moods before words. You learned how to shrink to avoid conflict. You learned how to become what others needed just to feel safe. And your brain did something precise. It locked those patterns in. Because to a child, survival doesn't mean comfort. It means attachment, even if that attachment hurts you. So now you're older, different life, different people. But the same patterns keep showing up, even when you don't realize it. You overthink every message. Silence makes your chest tighten. You feel responsible for emotions that were never yours to carry. And you tell yourself it's just anxiety. But your body knows better. It remembers waiting for approval, reading the room before speaking, feeling like one wrong move could change everything. So even in calm situations, you stay on edge. You analyze. You anticipate. You prepare for something that isn't happening, but feels like it will. Not because you're broken, because you were trained, and it leaks into places you don't question. Like why you're drawn to people who can't fully show up. Not because you enjoy pain, but because it feels familiar. That distance, that inconsistency, that feeling of almost being chosen. You've lived that before, and something in you still calls it love. So you try harder. You give more. You wait longer. You tolerate things you once swore you never would. Because some part of you believes if you finally get it right, you'll receive what was missing back then. And here's the moment most people don't want to face. You're not attached to them. You're attached to the unfinished feeling they trigger. A loop your past never closed, still running inside you. And this is where it turns darker. You don't just repeat the pain, you protect it. You defend it, even when it hurts you. You build your identity around it without noticing. You call yourself independent because relying on people never felt safe. Low maintenance because your needs once felt like too much. Chill because expressing emotion once cost you connection. So now you stay quiet, even when something inside you is asking to be heard. You've convinced yourself this is who you are, but it isn't. It's who you had to become, and it goes deeper than behavior. It reshapes how you see yourself. If you grew up feeling ignored, you don't just notice it, you expect it. So even when someone shows up for you, there's a part of you already preparing for them to leave. If you grew up being criticized, you don't just hear feedback, you hear rejection. So you become your own harshest voice before anyone else can be. If you grew up in chaos, calm doesn't feel peaceful. It feels unfamiliar, almost wrong. So you disrupt it, just enough to return to something your mind understands. This is how trauma controls you, not loudly, quietly, through patterns that feel like you. And the most disturbing part? You can live like this for years, without realizing anything is off. You think relationships are just complicated. You think your reactions are just how you are. You think peace is temporary, something that slips away. But it's not random. There's a structure behind it, a script written when you were too young to question it. And now, you're living it, without ever seeing the script. That's why awareness feels so uncomfortable at first, because it breaks the illusion. You start noticing things you can't ignore, why you apologize when you did nothing wrong, why resting feels like guilt, why you explain yourself, even when no one is accusing you. And suddenly, it stops feeling like personality. It starts feeling like conditioning. And that realization shifts something. Because if these patterns aren't you, then who are you without them? That question is where most people stop. Because letting go of these patterns doesn't just change your life, it changes your identity. And your brain resists that. It prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. So even when you start to grow, there's a pull to go back to what you know, back to what feels predictable, even if it quietly destroys you. But here's the truth most people never fully accept. You don't heal by forcing yourself to be different. You heal by understanding why you became this version of yourself. Because those patterns, they weren't flaws, they were solutions. They kept you safe when you had no control. The problem is, they're still running, even though you don't need them anymore. You're reacting to a past that isn't here, but your body still believes it is. So the shift begins when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What did I learn that I no longer need?" Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You catch it in real time. That pause before you overreact. That moment you notice yourself people-pleasing. That second where you realize you're about to accept less than you deserve. Again. And in that space, you finally have something new. A choice. Not a reaction. A choice. And that's where control starts coming back. Slowly, quietly, piece by piece. Because your past may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to keep deciding for you, unless you stay unconscious to it. And most people do. Not because they want to, but because it's easier. Easier to repeat what you know than to question everything you've been. But if you've made it this far, you've already interrupted the pattern. You're noticing. And that's where it begins. Not with a dramatic change, just a quiet awareness that maybe your life isn't as random as it feels, and maybe it's still yours to take back.